Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Let's get started with Week 21's WordNerd Wednesday. Now, last week, as I was reading the appendix on Durin's Folk for Third Age Thursday, we ended with Gandalf deciding that he would go to Thorin's self-styled poor lodgings in exile in the Blue Mountains. Of course, they were in Bree at the time, so they would have had to go west through the Shire. In doing so, they'd have crossed the Brandywine River. So let's take a look at that word on today's WordNerd Wednesday. Now, looking at the etymology of this well-known place name, it's the river that marks the border of the Shire. Yes, hobbits live on the other side over in Buckland, but they're a bit peculiar over there. Tolkien suggests in the prologue that Brandywine is the hobbits' name for a river called Brandywine in Sindarin. Now, the Sindarin name means long gold-brown river, from Baran, golden brown, and Duin, large river, like Anduin. And if you read the prologue closely, or if you just say the names out loud, it's clear that Brandywine isn't exactly a translation of Baranduin. It's a corruption or mispronunciation of it. Tolkien refers to the crossing of the Brandywine as the hobbits turned the name. Notice he said turned, not translated. This means that rather than translating the name, the hobbits just took the name and turned it into a name in their own Westron language that it sounded like. Of course, Tolkien being Tolkien, he couldn't leave it at that. In Appendix F to The Lord of the Rings, he gives us the hobbits' names for the river in the actual Westron language. You know, the language that he translated into English for us. Tolkien writes, actually, the older hobbit name was Brandanin, border water, which would have been more closely rendered by Marchborn, but by a jest that had become habitual, referring again to its color. At this time, the river was usually called Braldahim, heady ale. Now we can begin to understand why Tolkien chose to translate the Westron name as Brandywine. It was both a matter of the sound of the word itself and a play on the Hobbit pun, calling the brown river by the name of a brown alcoholic beverage. And even though we may be more used to calling the beverage in question simply brandy, not Brandywine, Tolkien knew, of course he knew, because he pretty much knew everything about language, that the name brandy was itself originally an abbreviation. The original name of the spirit was Brandywine, which was a derivation from Dutch, which I will not even try to pronounce. It's Brandewijn. I'm not Brandewijn. I don't know. I'm hazarding a guess there. It means burnt or distilled wine. Now, not surprisingly then, according to the nomenclature of The Lord of the Rings, Dutch translations of the book did use that exact Dutch word for the name of the river. And why not? They already had the perfect name for it that met all the criteria of Tolkien's complicated wordplay. I guess that's what happens when you're the people who invented the word in the first place. So congratulations, Netherlands, on both Brandywine and Max Verstappen. I know it's a short one, but folks, that is it for Brandywine and for today's WordNerd Wednesday. But come back next week as we wander the wide, wild, wonderful world of words weekly on Wednesdays. And if there is a word you want to know more about, please let me know by emailing barnaman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, a monthly hangout with me, a bonus weekly episode, and a whole lot more. Finally, join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Third Age Thursday. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Please follow or subscribe on your podcast apps, and follow @Tolkien Times on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.